Hi, this is Gary with Alden American. Today we're here with Q and his 67 C10 truck. It has air ride suspension. We're going to talk a little bit about air ride suspension. Alden American is really known for our coilovers. We've been building the coilovers for 40 years now, but we also make a line of shocks that's developed and designed around the airbag suspension and the lengths. So Q here has the 67 C10 truck. It has a chop and block front clip, a chop and block rear clip. It has the Alden American shocks on it. And so what we want to talk about a little bit is what system he has in it and how it operates.
Currently, we're running an Airlift 3H system, which is height sensors. We're using Slam Specialty airbags and the Alden American shocks.
So the term airbags, air suspension, air ride, all are kind of a generic for an air spring. So what an air spring does is it replaces the steel coil spring, whether it's inside the control arm or on a coilover shock. So the air spring in this case is mounted off the lower control arm, and it's mounted similar to the original steel coil spring and the upper pocket. And this particular kit has upper and lower A-arms, has a new cross member. It's designed as an airbag suspension. A lot of airbag suspension goes a full range, from cobbled up muffler shop, home brewed stuff, to very, very nice full rolling chassis that are all designed, developed, engineered for the airbags to work correctly. The cost of airbags really varies. Some of your home brewed stuff you'll see like an advertisement somewhere, and it'll be online, buy this airbag for 50 bucks, put it in your car, you'll be down the road in a week. Well, chances are that's not really what you want. You really want to stay away from the super cheap, because you want something that has been engineered and developed for your car. So the bag is correct, you don't want the bag rubbing, you want to make sure the bag has the right travel so that it works correctly in your car and is safe to drive. I'm going to show you how the air suspension works on this 67 truck. As I said before, it's a chop and block cross member, upper and lower A-arms. It's all of their engineering and really is a nice setup. Q was able to install this at home because it was designed correctly to start with. So when you're setting a car up for an air ride type suspension, one of the things is that shocks. Shocks are always like a second thought. How do we get them in there? How do we get enough dampening? How do we get the correct travel? How do we make the shocks work with what we want to accomplish? So in this case, we've got our upper mount, our lower mount, and this particular bracket relocates the shock so that it's longer than the original mounting location. So it has enough travel in the shock to match the travel in the control arms that the airbags are allowing it to go. So one of the last things that people think about is shocks on an air suspension, because you're more worried about getting the bag in, getting your lines run, and then all of a sudden you realize we need a shock. With this kit, the brackets for the upper shock mount and the lower shock mounts were engineered so that you can get a shock with sufficient travel to match the travel in your A-arms that your bag is allowing the A-arms to move up and down. So when we're measuring for shocks, we want to start off with our open measurement requirements. So in this case, the truck is at full extension. So this is going to be the longest the shock is ever going to be. So at this point, I want to measure from our upper mount to our lower mount, and that is going to determine our open length. The next measurement we're going to do is we're going to take all the air out of the airbag, and we're going to put the car all the way on the ground and do the same measurement, and that is our closed length. And so between the open and the closed lengths, we can determine what the correct length shock is. So when I put my tape measure in, I can see that my open length requirement is 16.5. With this being a 16.5 inch shock, that tells me that the open length requirement is going to be one of our 458 shocks. So as you can see, we've aired out the airbag, I've put my jack underneath the control arm, and I've moved it all the way up as far as the suspension will allow it to go. And as you can see, that we've got about an inch of travel left in the shock. So this particular shock with 5 inches of travel is what we needed for this air suspension. So on this air suspension setup, as you can see, it has tubular upper and lower A-arms, it has the airbag, and this whole cross member, the way it was built and manufactured, is for an airbag. It wasn't adapted into a stock cross member and stock control arms. So now that everything is set up correctly, as you can see, the airbag is mounted at the upper and the lower. It's also correct for its travel so that it doesn't completely bottom out or fully extend It's limited by the shock, it's limited by the suspension travel, and the other advantage of this system is it's got a position sensor. So this position sensor talks to a computer, it tells the computer the ride height and adjusts it appropriately so that he has multiple setups. One is his aired out, sitting at a cruise night type ride height, and he also has the ride height that he drives on. When he hits the position for driving, he's already got the front end aligned. It goes back to that position so that the front end is aligned just like it was when it was set up originally. A lot of times on the older airbags, it just had a pressure gauge. Depending on where you were sitting, you could never get the front end to repeat and you would wear tires out. This Alden American shock has a post adapter on the top and at the bottom. So this here makes it so that it bolts on nice and easy. We do have the adapters available. We have the adapters in both a 1/2 inch and a 5/8 where it bolts to the frame. We just need to know what you need. The other thing is it's got the dampening adjuster. And so when you go full counterclockwise, that is the softest position. So when you adjust the knob clockwise, it will increase the dampening, making it more firm so that you can get the car under control and adjust it to what you need. The chop and block front suspension that this truck has includes a rack, it includes all the brackets, the airbag is mounted correctly, makes for a real nice, easy installation, and Q is able to do this at home in his own garage. So now we're going to move on to the rear of the truck. As you can see, this has a triangulated rear suspension. Again, this is also chop and block. It's their kit, requires welding, requires bolting, requires a little bit of work to install it, but it's a real nice setup. We've got the airbag mounted here. We have our position sensor mounted here. You can also see the oval tubing for the exhaust, which is really nice and special on this truck. And the icing on the cake is the Alden American shocks. So we're talking airbags today, so I wanted to kind of show the upper and the lower mounts have been designed around having an airbag, so this arm has been made strong enough to support the airbag. The upper cross member has been designed and engineered to support the airbag. So the airbag has been chosen to be the correct open and closed length, and more importantly, it doesn't collapse completely or overextend and possibly rip the airbag. Safety is always a huge concern. We want to make sure there's nothing rubbing the airbag. We want to make sure that it's working and functioning as it should. As you can see on the rear here, we have our airbag style shock. It's the billet aluminum, single adjustable rebound on the top, and measurement is the same procedure as the front. We just want to make sure aired out completely for our closed length and fully extended for our open length. This is our 458 5B shock. So it's 18 inches open and closed. One of the questions that always comes up is ride quality. Coilover, airbag, which rides better? You know, I want to lay the truck out at the car show. I can't do that with a coilover, but I can do that with an airbag. But it all comes down to personal choice. If you're really looking to lay the truck out at a car show, an air suspension is the way to go. If you're really looking for something that has low maintenance, easy to install, a coilover a lot of times is a better choice. But the bottom line on it is, it all revolves around setting the suspension up correctly. An air ride suspension can have awesome ride, it can be horrible to drive. It can be just as safe or unsafe, all depends upon the installation and your choice of parts. This particular truck with the air ride suspension, the controller, and all the sensors and ride position and everything else, it drives awesome. Q drives this thing all over Southern California, goes to a lot of shows, and he really loves the way it drives. He's building another truck with air ride suspension. I tried to talk him into coilovers, but he says, I gotta have my airbags. The 14 truck he's got is definitely gonna be a static drop because it is a daily driver. So it all kind of revolves around ride quality, how does it drive? It really is installation and choice of parts. So we've now talked about the air ride suspension, setting an airbag up, how to choose your shock for your open and your closed lengths. And for more information, if you're looking to buy an Alden American shock, check us out, aldenamerican.com.